Hi guys! Day 7 of Max and the Gatekeeper. Let's see what happens. Ooh, we're getting close to being done. We're almost there. Okay. So, Grandpa just left to go into another world to find a guy named Hootich. That's who the enemy wants in order to trade for Cindy. So, let's see what happens. Thanks. Joe picked up a walking stick and then gave them a wave, and he entered the gateway. Joe dropped out into a wooded area. The sky was clear and a breeze blew through his hair. The night air was fresh with the smell of wild flowers, and a gurgling stream flowed nearby. Joe surveyed the area, trying to decide which direction to go. It had been 5 years since his last trip here, but it was a world he would never forget. He thought it was foolish not to remember every detail of Hootitch's prison. It was the world in which he trapped Hootitch so that he could protect others. He pulled a notebook from his pack. On the inside cover was a map. He hoped Hootitch hadn't chosen a new home since his last visit. During the 20 years since he had ensnared him, he made several trips to check up on him. As the years went by, it was more difficult to spy because Hootitch gained power. Not enough to free himself from Pikel, but enough to control it. After a narrow escape on his last trip and the incident with his son, Joe gave up his inspections. After checking the map, he started heading towards Hootitch's last known place of residence. It was the best piece of land here, so why would he move? Joe searched for a road drawn on his map. It took him a few minutes to find it. Turning east, he increased his pace. He didn't try to conceal his presence. He wanted Hootitch to know he was here. Since they only had 3 days to save Cindy, there was no point in playing hide and seek. Besides, it would be impossible to sneak up on Hootitch in his guarded castle and place the band around his neck. No, he has to put it on willingly. A rustle in a nearby tree brought him to a halt. A massive raven-like bird sat on a branch. Suddenly, it stretched its wings out and cried, "Caw, caw," and then launched itself into the air and flew east. He'll know I'm here. He followed the flight of the bird. He walked at a brisk pace, expecting trouble at any moment, but to his surprise, nothing happened. He rounded a bend in the road and hit the end of the trees. A short distance farther on, he reached the edge of a hill. The road wound its way down a steep slope into a valley with a wide river snaking through it. Joe stopped to study the valley. In the center of the vale stood a giant castle with high towers and a protective rock wall. The river flowed straight towards it and then split to form an island on which the castle sat. The drawbridge was up. The castle appeared deserted. Not a single light glowed in any window, or no guards patrolled the walls. Maybe he has moved after all. Joe needed a closer look. If Hootitch wasn't there, he would have to find a way to get his attention, quickly. If he had to search for him, he wouldn't know where to begin. It took a while for him to descend the rocky dirt road leading into the valley. The road was so steep that if he hadn't brought his walking stick, he wouldn't have any skin left on his backside. Even though he hadn't seen anything suspicious, his heart raced and his mouth was dry. He tried to convince himself the symptoms were the result of the difficult descent, but he knew it was more than that. All of his senses operated on high. Every time the wind rustled the weeds, he jerked towards the disturbance. The river meandered along with soft, soothing ripples. It was at least 100 feet across before it divided around the castle. As he arrived at the castle, it sprang to life. Torches ignited in every window and along the walls. The drawbridge crashed down, chains rattling. A squad of trogs on horseback poured out and surrounded him. Their thick green skin, with its coarse hair, was visible in the torchlight. Yellow eyes mounted on fat, round noses stared at Joe, while long, pointed ears flapped and twitched. A massive trog, with nasty yellow teeth, coaxed his horse forward and lowered his spear to Joe's chest. "What do you want, old man?" Joe swallowed and his heart jumped into his throat. "I'm here to see Hootitch." The trog shoved Joe with his foot and almost knocked him off his feet. "That's Lord Hootitch, old man." They stared at each other for a few moments. "Bring him," the Trog ordered. Several Trogs dismounted and overpowered Joe. They tackled him to the ground and kicked him repeatedly. Then they removed his pack and tied his hands behind his back. When he was secure, they set him on his feet. "Move," one commanded as they marched into the castle. Once inside, they covered his head with a hood so he couldn't see. Twice he caught his foot on something protruding from the floor and went down. After several minutes of marching, his escorts thrust him into a room so violently he stumbled again. This time, no one yanked him up. A door slammed, and then there was silence. Joe used the floor to wiggle the hood off of his head. He was in a fair-sized room which contained a long wooden table and several chairs. Moonlight filtered in through a row of stained glass windows, bathing half the room in a soft glow. Two wooden doors on opposite ends of the room appeared to be the only entrances or exits. He rolled to the nearest wall, placed his back against it, and struggled to his feet. His ribs screamed with pain where the Trogs had beaten him. "It isn't fun, is it?" a deep voice spoke from the shadows. "What isn't?" "Getting old. You aren't the man you used to be," the voice continued. "I, however, will be around for long after you are gone, as you know. My kind have longer lifespans. Yet, my kind live in a better world." Joe returned his own jab in response to the old remark. "I have a feeling that is about to change." "Not if I can help it, Hudich," Joe emphasized his name. Suddenly, an incredible force struck Joe in the stomach, doubling him over and dropping him to his knees. It took him a moment to regain his breath and climb back to his feet. "That's Lord Hudich, old man. I have developed my skills in this forsaken place, something I'm sure you have not. Perhaps I am forced to live in this place." Joe aimed the barb at Hudich's ego. Wham! Another blow hit Joe in the abdomen, and he fell to the floor, gasping for breath. "Your place of residence has officially changed. Permanently," Hudich laughed. "Not if you want a different one," Joe winced as he regained his feet. "What are you talking about?" "A chance for you to escape this place." "What makes you think I want to leave?" Joe decided not to answer. He wanted Hudich to mull over the possibility of being free from Pikel. The desire for control dominated Hudich's thoughts, and that was not possible here. He might rule Pikel, but Pikel limited his power. "I'm listening," Hudich said after a few moments. "But if I don't like what I hear, you'll be staying forever. And let me assure you, they'll be the worst days of your life." "Like you said, I'm an old man." Joe let a pause go by before speaking again. He could feel Hudich's impatience growing and his breath quickening in anticipation. "Your followers are holding someone of great importance to me. And they want to trade you for this person. They've given me 3 days to make it happen or they will kill my friend. Are you prepared to die for this person?" "Yes." "I know you, and you're not telling me everything. If you are willing to die for your friend, you have more conditions." "Yes, where is my pack?" Joe gasped at a stab of pain from his bruised ribs. Out of the shadows, a leg and then another one became visible. Tiger-like feet with sharp claws moved into the faint light as Hudich stepped towards the table. Then a long, muscular arm flashed out of the darkness and dumped the contents of Joe's pack onto the table. The items scattered in all directions. With his face still hidden in blackness, Hudich rummaged through the items as if he didn't recognize any. He examined the gun for a moment. "I've seen this object before." Joe swallowed the lump in his throat, fearing Hudich might know what it was, when he placed it back on the table. Hudich held up the collar and played with it for a bit. After checking the other things, he threw the pack down on the pile. "What do you want with this stuff?" "To take you to the world of the Xenozis, where I will swap you for my friend." Hudich melted back into the shadows. His harsh breathing filled the room, and Joe figured he was pondering the idea. "How do you intend to do this?" "Among my things is a collar you will have to wear." Joe approached the table. "Once the switch is made, I will remove it." "What does this collar do?" "It will make it so you can't use magic." Joe jumped to the point. He didn't have anything to gain by trying to fool Hudich. "Why would I submit to wearing your collar, old man?" Joe detected the threat in Hudich's voice. He was not someone to toy with, and he was dangerous, even with the full use of magic. "These are my terms. You will wear the collar, and I will transport you to the land of the Xenozes. The collar will ensure that you will behave yourself during our journey. Once we make the trade, I will free you. Joe paused to get a feel for Hootish's reaction. To show you how serious I am, I let you capture me. I'm willing to be your prisoner until I die if you don't want your freedom. You have 3 days to make the trade? Yes, after that you will be stuck here forever. And as you so eagerly pointed out, you will live a lot longer than I will. Hootich leapt towards the table. One hand held Joe's pack open below the edge of the table as the others swept the objects off into the pack. I'll keep this for a while. Hootich spun around from the table and left through the door at the far end of the room. After the door closed, Joe let out a sigh of relief. He went to one of the chairs and sat down. He twisted and rotated his hands to test his bands. The sharp pain in his wrist told him the ropes were tight. He wasn't comfortable in this position. Gritting his teeth, he slid his hands under his butt and to the back of his knees. Sweat formed on his forehead as he battled the aches in his wrists and ribs. Exhaling all the air from his lungs, he pulled one of his knees to his chest and slipped his hand over his foot. A gasp echoed off the walls as he moaned against the stabbing pain. He paused for a moment and repeated the process, bringing his hands in front of his body. He wondered how long he would have to wait. Exhausted, he laid his head on the table. Before he could fall asleep, the door at the far end of the room swung open with a bang. Joe jerked up, staring into the gloom. Hootich advanced close enough that his body was visible in light, but his head remained in the shadows. Have you made a decision? Joe asked. Yes. I intend to find out how serious you are about dying for your friend. That is the end of chapter 15. Now we're on chapter 16, called The Retrieval. So exciting. Bye, guys.